Julia Campbell here, who's a marketing consultant, and she's going to talk about how to drive donor engagement with social media today.
Yes.
Julia is a nonprofit consultant and speaker focused on digital storytelling, social media marketing. Let me hide the results so that we can do the screen share. She's the author of two books, a mom of two kids, and a returned Peace Corps volunteer. Her mission is to get organizations and change makers to stop spinning their wheels and start getting real results using digital tools. And I can sign on board for that, that's for sure. You can check out her thoughts and ideas at jcsocialmarketing.com/blog. Julia, thank you so much for joining us today. I really
Thanks.
appreciate it. And I'm
Yeah.
really eager to learn because I have a self-disclosed love-hate relationship with social media.
Oh, me
So
too.
I'm thrilled to maybe try and come to peace with it a little bit more.
Thank you. Well, thanks for having me. I have quite a few slides, and I know we want to take some time for questions. So we're just going to get started, but I'm really excited to be here today. And, we read my bio, so I don't need to go through all of that. I just want to let you know that I have been a development director, marketing director. I've worked for really small shops. I've been a team of one. And I'm sure, like a lot of you from varying sizes of organizations, but I have definitely been in your shoes. So I want you to know that your time and attention, your two most precious non-renewable resources, and I'm excited to spend the next half hour with you. If you want to get my digital storytelling workbook sent to your inbox, I will put this number up at the end as well. Just text workbook to 33777. Okay, so we are going to cover quite a lot of material today. I want to give you a really brief overview of what's going on with social media right now, a really simple framework that you can use, and some tools that you can use, and also some examples to inspire you. And this was a really fun presentation to make because I got to look at pictures of cats, which I love. So what's the 2020 social media landscape? So the most recent data has shown that almost 4 billion people are active social media users. We like to say that we are not using social media, or we're using it less, or we're all going to quit Facebook, but the statistics show a very different picture. It's actually growing. So the daily social media use is remaining pretty flat on some of the biggest platforms like Facebook and Twitter, but on Instagram and YouTube, it's actually growing, and engagement is actually growing on Instagram and YouTube. So it's just worth noticing. I know that some of you are on Instagram. Also, please do not write off social media if you say, well, all of our donors are older, our board members are older, because the generation 65 plus, that's the fastest growing generation adopting these channels. And 64% of 50 to 64-year-olds are on at least one social media network. And my mom is on Instagram and loves YouTube and Facebook. And I think she's on pretty much everything except for maybe Twitter. So definitely don't write them off. And don't think that young people are not using them as well. They're just using them a little bit differently and maybe using some different channels than we would use. In terms of behavior, what I found really interesting about this study was that the reasons that we're using social media are changing. So it used to be that we would join these networks because my friends are on them, to stay in touch with my friends. But now we're using them more like a search engine, and we're using them more to find things that we care about and follow brands and organizations and institutions and news. And we're relying on them more and more to get that information and to express who we are and what we stand for and our identity. So I think it's a really huge opportunity for nonprofits. Now, the Global NGO Technology Report is one of my favorite reports, and it found unequivocally, social media does matter for nonprofits. 94% of NGOs agree that it's effective for creating online brand awareness. It also generates a lot of website traffic. And I love this third statistic. 36% of social media users say they've used these sites to show support for a cause, which I think is really pretty cool. There's also a renewed focus on donor retention, and that's what we're talking about today. How can we use social media to build a community and to keep donors in the fold, and then to build relationships with new ones? So I'm loving that AFP Global is showing that people are intensifying their efforts in social media, online and virtual events, especially in this climate where we are socially distanced. We do have to pay more attention to how we can use these kinds of tools to create that community. Now, really quickly, I wanted to touch on some of the reasons, now this is all research based, why donors stop giving. Because if we know why donors stop giving, and if we know what keeps them giving, then we can best craft our social media strategy to touch on these points. So thought charity didn't need them, no information on how the monies were used, no memory of supporting, never got thanked. Obviously death, we cannot do anything about. Poor service or communication, others more deserving. 54% could no longer afford. So there's only two things here that we cannot control: could no longer afford and death. Everything else is really in our wheelhouse to control in terms of the donor experience, and we can use digital tools and social media to do that. So now let's examine why donors keep giving. Donor perceives organization to be effective. Donors know what to expect with each interaction. Donor receives a timely thank you, receives opportunities to make their views known, feels like they're part of an important cause, feels their involvement is appreciated, receives information showing who or what is being helped. So if we know why donors stop giving, and we also know why donors keep giving, then we can really start crafting our donor retention plan and incorporate social media, because social media is really just a piece of your donor retention plan. So this is going to be your just very quick and dirty way to plan for the rest of the year. Build trust now, inspiration in November, ask in December, and then thank stakeholders in January. So if you don't have a little year-end plan, there you go. And then we actually did the poll, which I thought was very interesting. It's not very surprising. Facebook is still the biggest powerhouse, and it's the place where there's kind of the widest variety of demographics. And it's not surprising that most of you are on Facebook. So how can we use social media marketing in a more strategic way to connect with our donors and to build relationships with new ones? So your three-part framework, and we're going to touch on each of these: clarify, captivate, and cultivate. If you do not know where you're going, you cannot build a roadmap to get there. If you don't know what you're going to enter into Google Maps, Google will not know the directions to give you. So we're going to go through each of these three parts. Now, I've definitely been in this meeting. I'm sure most of us have been in a very similar meeting. What's the big campaign idea? Oh, we're going to go digital. This is why I never start with the tools first, because if you do not know where you're going, if you don't understand your goal, what you're trying to accomplish using social media, you can't effectively figure out which platforms to be on. So we have to spend some time really figuring out what we're trying to do. What would we do if we couldn't fail? What do we hope to achieve with social media? What does success look like? And I encourage you to go beyond just video views. Our CAD adoption numbers tanked this quarter, but the important thing is our YouTube views are way up. Don't focus on getting on Facebook, start tweeting, get 5,000 fans. They're not goals. These are just tactics to get you to your goals. And we confuse tactics with goals very often. So after you have your goal in mind, it might be a fundraising goal, it might be a monthly donor goal, whatever it might be. Then you're going to figure out, who do you need to bring on board, or who do you need to connect with in order to accomplish this goal? We really have to start understanding what our supporters value, even just beyond our work. What motivates them, what drives them to participate. And an example that I always give, an example of my client, Road Scholar, they had a huge Facebook following, but not a lot of engagement. And it wasn't until they really, really drilled down deeply into what their audience wanted and what they cared about, only then did they start getting more engagement and shares and comments and likes. Once they knew who they were talking to, and you have to know just as much who you're not talking to as well. And then what does your target audience know about you? What myths or misconceptions might they have? And that can also inform your content strategy. Only after you know your goal and your audience can you then choose platforms. So how do you choose which platforms on which to spend your time? Where are your priorities going to be? Well, which ones are going to help you reach your target audience and get them to take the action that you want? And don't be afraid to break up with platforms that aren't working. Now, I show this slide. I don't find slides like this to be, very effective or helpful, because I don't want you making any decisions on platforms without having those first 2 steps nailed down. But it's not enough anymore to have a social media strategy. You have to have a platform specific strategy. If you are going to be on all these channels, you have to have a very specific mini strategy for each platform, because each platform is its own country and each platform has its own language and etiquette. You would not buy a guidebook to go to Germany if you were going on a trip to Spain. So what works on LinkedIn doesn't necessarily work on Instagram. Your mini strategy is going to answer these questions. Why are you using this specific platform? So let's just take Instagram. What do you hope to gain specifically from being on Instagram? Why Instagram as opposed to something else? What types of content are you going to share that is specifically designed to work on Instagram? What kind of voice are you going to have on Instagram? What are you going to measure so that you know progress and or success? The second piece is Captivate. This is where you're going to create that content and come up with the actual posts and tweets and photos and videos that you're going to share. Now, there's 3 essential types of nonprofit social media content. People have to know you, like you, and trust you in order to give to you. So even though we're talking about social media, we're going to talk about philosophy, because Aristotle is the preeminent thought leader, definitely one of the best thought leaders in terms of persuasion and influence. And what he said is that the only way you can persuade and influence people to take an action is if you have credibility, if you appeal to their emotional nature, and then use logic to help them rationalize. So what does this look like? Ethos, pathos, and logos. These are vitally important, and every social media marketing strategy should have a mix of these 3 key principles. So ethos is credibility. This is all about your brand, your reputation. This is showing up consistently. This is being accessible, being transparent, sharing really helpful information. It's going to help your donors answer the question, why should we listen to you? Why are you a trustworthy source? Top 10 ways to prevent animal cruelty. All of that helps lend an air of credibility to your organization. Talking about issues that people care about, sharing helpful, useful, informative, enlightening information. That's the kind of stuff that's going to really build up your brand, build up your reputation, get you seen as the go-to resource, and that will establish credibility in your donors' minds. Then logos. So this is the logical rationale. Now, we like to think that we are logical creatures, but the truth is we're emotional creatures. We make decisions based on emotion, and then we back it up with logic. We kind of rationalize it with logic. So sharing statistics, this is definitely not like the fundraising. This is not going to be your most explosive fundraising post of the whole year, data and statistics, but it's important because you need to convince people that the problem you're solving, that the issue that you're working on is something of consequence. Why is this issue important? What is the problem? Is this actually a problem? Like, is what's going on a problem, or is it not a problem? And this is where you're going to get into analogies, citing authorities, case studies, You can also start retweeting other thought leaders or other industry leaders. You can talk about research. This is going to help prove your point that you're trying to make and help with the convincing of your donors. So data makes people think, but emotions make them act. And we know that. And you know the kind of content that works best for your audience on social media channels. You have it in your mind. You can probably remember a time, especially if you're on Facebook, that you posted something and it got over the, over the usual number of likes and comments. So just have that in the back of your mind. Especially for fundraising, you have to have that emotional appeal. Now, what we tend to do is we tend to tell stories that are simply accounting things that happened. So Julia was hungry. Julia came to the food bank. Julia got some food and Julia left. Or Julia wanted a cat. Julia adopted a cat and Julia went home. Whatever it might be. That's a recounting of things that happened. There have to be stakes. There has to be conflict. There has to be some kind of compelling emotion in order not only to get people to pay attention, but to get them to take action. Now, the emotion that you invoke, that's up to you, right? So I can't tell you which one. I'm going to show you a couple of examples. Now, PETA, obviously, most of you are familiar with PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. The emotion that they evoke, it's very Sarah McLachlan, Arms of the Angels, ASPCA, dogs, cats in cages. It's very provocative. It makes you angry. It makes you upset. And their audience responds. That's what their audience responds to. But then on the other hand, you have Best Friends Animal Society. They take a completely different tactic. They take a completely different approach, and they share success stories, and they share stories of hope, and they share testimonials. They would never share a photo of an animal in a cage. It just would never, that would never happen for Best Friends. So they share pictures and photos and stories that help instill inspiration and pride in their donors. And that is a powerful emotion. That is a powerful emotion, pride, feeling like I am so proud to be a part of this organization. I also wanted to highlight this post because I really think it's a perfect fundraising post on social media. It's got the image that catches your eye. It's got the story that's going to pique your curiosity, and it is a very specific call to action. Can you give just $5 to help Fiesta and other animals like her? Also, the Humane Society of the United States, they share a mixture. So they share a mixture of the PETA method and a mixture of the Best Friends Animal Society method. So for your audience, you really need to understand, first of all, what you're comfortable doing and what you're comfortable sharing and what your audience is going to best respond to. Now, remember, we don't want to just pull heartstrings. Now, the ASPCA, of course, they've raised millions with this Sarah McLachlan ad, but what they found is that people are now numb to it. It actually is having the opposite effect because people hate it. There are memes talking about it. People reach for the clicker immediately when it comes on. So what about happy adoption stories? I love it. So I've got some examples of some organizations. All the links are here, and you're going to get the slides. Happy adoption stories, making people feel proud, making people feel happy, making people feel warm and fuzzy. It's really, really a great emotion to evoke in people. Also, I want to encourage you on social media to have fun. This is Skeletor in Love, one of my favorite social media accounts. It's just fun. Do we remember when social media was fun? I don't know if we do, but it used to be fun. It was supposed to be fun. And we can take it back and have a little bit of fun, I think. So the TSA is one of my favorite Instagram accounts. Who would have known? And you can see they very distinctly have a voice, and they know what they're trying to do, and they know who they're trying to reach. So they're actually a fantastic example of really knowing who they are and what they're trying to accomplish on social media. Sharing behind the scenes, sharing Instagram stories, sharing that human side of your organization, all very important. I think sharing Instagram stories is one of the best ways to not only reach a younger audience, but to stay top of mind because you can share them every single day. They don't have to be perfect. You can create graphics to do it. You can have volunteers submit photos, and you could do 20 photos a day on Instagram stories if you wanted to. So just take advantage of the features that are out there to really highlight your mission in that kind of way. And the IRS, okay, so the TSA is an example, and then also the IRS. They are a great example of using each platform for a specific purpose to reach a specific audience. So Facebook, they want to reach tax preparers. On Instagram, they want to reach younger people. So I think they're a really great example if you look at their social media channels, because they're all used very specifically to target a specific audience and get them to take a particular action. The third part of the framework is cultivate. This is being consistent. This is creating your calendar. This is making sure that you're showing up regularly, because remember, we need our donors to know, like, and trust us. And we need to continually keep that cycle going. So you can repurpose one story. If you put it on your blog, you can do an email campaign, you could do a Facebook post. There are so many social media calendar tools out there. I personally just use a Google spreadsheet with my clients, and that's proven to work, and they love that. And then remember, all of this can be shared and repurposed across all of these channels. You can embed your Instagram stories into your blog. You can take your Facebook Live video and put it on YouTube. There are so many ways that you can remix, repurpose, recycle so that you're not reinventing the wheel. So your new mantra is less is more, focus over frantic. And your social media studio, it's your phone or your tablet. You can use your desktop, but you don't have to. We all have these hugely powerful devices in the palm of our hands. And I wanted to just quickly give you some of my favorite battle-tested tools. Canva, of course, that's my graphic design go-to. They now have a social media management platform so that you can actually schedule posts directly from Canva. And I know nonprofits get a 50% discount on their premium account. Animoto and Lumen 5 for video, really easy tools to use for the non-techie, non-video editor. And I'm definitely not a video editor. And my favorite mobile app is WordSwag. That's where you can take your own photos or use their photos, put text overlay, create animated GIFs, all that kind of great stuff. Also, Hootsuite I really like for scheduling and for measurement. So you can get great reports and analytics from Hootsuite, and Buffer is another one for scheduling. Later, I really like for Instagram. So you can use Facebook Creator Studio, which is just the free scheduling platform built into Facebook, and you can schedule to Facebook and Instagram from there. But I don't know, it's buggy, it doesn't really work for me. I don't like the way it looks, so I prefer Later. And then BuzzSumo is a place where you can explore topics, where you can enter in keywords and hashtags and buzzwords and find an array of topics from across the web. All right, so before we get to your questions, I just wanted to leave you with my 3 keys to social media success. You can see I like C words, right? Consistency. How are you showing up for people when you're not asking them for money? That's imperative. You can't just be on social media and only fundraising. How are you showing up and being present? What kind of content are you creating? Are you really spending time creating content that people like to watch, read, share, and comment on? And also have confidence. Take risks, be yourself. Have confidence in your voice and taking risks and in being yourself. Okay. All right, so I can't see the questions, but I'm assuming that there are questions.
Yep. So
Great.
I will, I've been watching them, and
Sure.
if you want to turn your camera on,
Oh yeah, I do.
so people can see that we both exist and we're alive and all that stuff.
Yay, I know, and actually put makeup on. Oh, but I forgot to close my closet, but whatever, it's fine. See the messy office behind me.
So one question for you with regards to Instagram. folks are asking, do you have any opinions versus with a personal account versus switching to a business account? Some folks have heard that you get better organic reach if you stay with a personal account, but you have better analytics from a business account. So what would you
Mhm.
recommend on Instagram?
Well, you're violating Instagram's terms of service if you are a nonprofit and you have a personal account. So, be quiet about it if you do, because you're not supposed to be doing any kind of solicitation or marketing or selling with a personal account. But I recommend the business account because then you have access to insights and analytics, but you also have access to the ad platform. So you can promote your posts in the feed and promote them in stories. Oh, and
With
you can get the donate button too if you have a business account.
Gotcha. If with everybody's focus being on social media, do you feel we all still need to have a website for our nonprofit, or is
Oh,
that
yeah.
obsolete?
Oh no, you absolutely have to have a website because think about the first thing that you do when you hear about something. You Google it or you ask Siri or you ask Alexa. So you 100% still need to have a website. Email communications are still incredibly important as well. Social media is really, it's to build a community, but in terms of direct fundraising, having a donate button on your website, having an email fundraising program, I mean, all of that is very important too.
Do you have a recommendation for a good small nonprofit for newsletter or email platform?
Um, I think MailChimp is the one that most people use. It's free up to a certain number of subscribers. I also really like Constant Contact. It's a woman-owned business, and it's actually in my state of Massachusetts. So I know they have a nonprofit discount. So if you're just starting out, MailChimp or Constant Contact.
I didn't know you're Mass. You're a
Yes.
local
Yeah.
girl.
Hmm.
Um, Last question. What do you think about the donate buttons on Facebook? And could you speak to the process for signing up for Facebook payments? And I have
Yes.
very mixed feelings about getting donations off of Facebook
Yeah.
because we never get their information.
Right. But if I sent you $20 in the mail, you'd still take it, right?
I'd say, oh yeah, give me $20 cash. I would take it, but I would analyze like the return and I mean, and all that stuff too. But yeah, certainly we would take it. But we just had a long presentation about
Yep.
developing relationships and understanding who your donor is and all that kind of
Yep.
stuff. It has value, but it has less value, I guess I would say.
I think it's a tool in your toolbox. I don't think you can rely on it. It's sort of like having a balanced diet. You have to have that. You have to have direct mail. You have to have email. You have to have the donate button on your website. You have to call donors and have coffee with them or Zoom coffees. Um, so I think it's part of a balanced diet, but people love it. They really, really like it. And the benefit of it is you get more exposure. So you might not like if I gave $5 because a friend had a birthday fundraiser for you, later on, I'm aware of your organization. I'm aware that someone can set up a fundraiser for you. I might set up a fundraiser for you, or I might look into your organization. So it's hard because you can't have that direct, like, I know this person came from Facebook and then now they're a major donor. But I don't know, the power of the tools, and people are going to give the way they want to give. If they want to start a birthday fundraiser and you don't offer that, they're going to just raise money for someone else. So to me, I think focus on the people that are holding the fundraisers for you and focus less. I mean, don't worry about that $5 donor that only gave because
Mhm.
someone had a birthday fundraiser. So I think it's got to be part of a diet. It's like Oreos. Like you can't just eat Oreos. I wish that you could, but
Yeah, excellent. All right. And somebody's got a question in here, which we're actually not going to answer because it's about fees. And we could do like if different fees on different platforms, we could probably talk about that for 3, 4
well,
hours.
Facebook doesn't have any fees. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube do not have fees attached if you are registered with their fundraising. But yeah, all the different platforms, like if you're using an outside platform, I would look into their fees. And also a good tip is to ask your donors to cover the fees. I've seen that. I know with GoFundMe charity,
Mhm.
you are allowed to ask that question automatically, and a lot of donors will do that.
Awesome. Thank you, Julia. Thank you
Sure.
so much.
Thanks,
We are
Stacy.
going to do a quick flip over to